All right. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. I am your host, Jonah Mitchell. On the show, I do my best to make the process of losing weight, improving your health, changing your body composition, make sense, make it easier than it possibly has been for you. Because, ultimately, I want you to accomplish everything that you truly want. Question the things that you say you want to see if those are things that you actually value, or if there's issue, or if there's other reasons that may be holding you back, right? Because ultimately, I want to help you rise up to your potential. And we do that by addressing the things that we need. And from a lot of what I've learned, what I help people do is help them uncover these things. So, I'm really excited to talk about today. I talk about this a lot when I'm coaching people, and really helping them get to the point of understanding how to show up for themselves no matter what's going on, especially on their worst day. So I want to just jump right into that. I took a bit of a week off because my wife and I's anniversary is coming up. We celebrated it a little early because it just worked out timing wise. So I am back wanting to share these nuggets that I share with my clients. That's what I personally believe helps guarantee their results. So essentially the concept of being ready for your worst day really comes from understanding your minimums, right? Because a lot of people's minimums are doing nothing and doing nothing at all. But really, the true ability to not only start seeing results but sustaining them is not letting yourself stay in those low parts of any aspect of your journey or your life, right? No matter what we do, we cannot control the ups and downs of life, right? So that's never the goal of like, okay, it needs to be perfect, even though you're moving or you're going through a divorce or you're having all these hard things happen. You need to still show up for your weight loss goals because those are the most important things. Well, they are important, right? But if we always treat them as the most important thing, well, then it oftentimes becomes really unrealistic to expect all the things that people think they need to do to see results, right? They think they need to track the calories. They think they need to work out every single day. They think they need to hit a certain protein amount every single day in order to just see results. And that's not the case, right? The only thing that really guarantees your results is if you're showing up consistently. Consistency is the thing that we need the most. And if we can make our worst day a little bit better, where we show up a little bit more consistent, well, then we have more reminders to keep the ball rolling in the direction that we want it to go. And this is something that I term or I took from one of my friends, a fellow coach. It's called raising your floor. All right. This is what showing up on your worst day really looks like. Can your worst day be a little bit better than where it was? And raising your floor, going back to what I said earlier, is about raising those minimums. If all else fails, can you focus on 2 or 3 things that are not perfect, but no matter what's going on, you can get them done? And they're simple and they're easy. They're supposed to be easy on those days where it's really hard to say, yeah, I'm willing to do that. Because if it's not easy to do, right? Another thing, people have a misconception that their weight loss goals, their fat loss goals, or whatever their health goal is supposed to be hard to do, right? They're supposed to be work hard every day. But if your goal is hard to do every single day, right? When life gets hard, inevitably it all does for us in some way, shape, or form. Well, then you're going to have ample amounts of reasons to not do the thing. But if it's easy, right? If it is easy to accomplish a simple task on your worst day, then you can mitigate, you can lessen the amount of time that you stay in that lull, right? It doesn't make it go away, but at least it doesn't turn into you completely abandoning all the things that you say you want, right? So being ready on your worst day simply looks like this, right? There's 5 categories I really help with my clients when we're starting. Before I ever even give them macros, if they're not ready, if their routines, if their relationship with their food is not ideally where we would like it to be, there's 5 categories that we work on, that we help measure, and then alongside, like, we kind of coach them through the mindset piece of like, hey, this could be good enough for right now. They're an all or nothing person, right? Or if they're incredibly negative and critical person, we tie these 5 categories into their mental struggles so that when they do go through them, they have these measurable pieces to say, hey, if it's not perfect, it's not great, it's not I'm not going through an easy time right now, but I have small, measurable, manageable tasks that I can show up a little bit better on my worst day. Because if I didn't have those, if I didn't have that reminder on my worst days, I probably wouldn't do anything at all, which would then we would continue to perpetuate those feelings and then continue to uh well I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but when we get stuck in those ruts, our brain will always get what it looks for, right? And I'm kind of experience this right now. I go from, I have my routines, I have my habits, I have a really good momentum going in a lot of directions for my health. I go on vacation for a few days, and then I'm in vacation mode where I'm not focusing on my meal preps, my exercise, my routine. And then when I get back home, I'm having a bit of a hard time getting back in the swing of things, right? Because my brain got used to a certain way of living, of operating, of looking for other things that it was accustomed to while I was on vacation, right? So when we're in these tough times, right, our brain is going to look for everything that's going to agree, like, yeah, this is hard, so let's just not do what we know is going to be beneficial for us, what we know is going to get us closer to our goals, even if it's not perfect, right? So we want to get our brain out of that rut by focusing on these 5 categories to help catch that, to help mitigate that, so that we can still keep going in the right direction. Maybe the momentum's even a bit slower. Maybe we're plateauing in progress, right? But at least we're not falling down the hill, right? We're not losing anything by doing these simple things on your worst day. So the 5 categories, if you're a long-time listener, one, I appreciate you. And if you're new here, these are what I do with my clients, right? The first one is daily activity, just daily movement, right? A lot of people put a lot of emphasis on their exercise needing to see results, but really the magic with movement is just moving more throughout the day. This is why steps are super popular. I coach my clients to get between 7 and 10,000 steps on a regular basis, right? If we can do that, that add extra amount of calories that you'll just be active throughout the day helps a lot with not only starting to see physical results, but sustaining them, because you're just going to become a person who prioritizes movement the best way they can. The person who takes the stairs, who parks farther away, all those things end up adding up, especially think about doing it for 1, 5, 10 years. Like, that stuff does add up way more than you think, right? So that's an area that we work on, right? I don't expect people to be at 7 to 10,000 on a regular basis, right? I expect them to understand where they're currently at. If they're only getting about 3,000, cool. How do we work our way up? How do we make sure that that's not our that even on our worst day, maybe 3,000 is our floor, right? But can we make that 3,000 3,500? Can we make that 3,000 4,000? Can we make that 4,000 4,500? Right? It's these small incremental increases that we're working on, so that their minimum goes from, oh, I barely get 3,000 steps. Well, now if all else fails, I will get 5,000 steps. I'm still working to get between 7 to 10, but if all else fails, I will get at least 5,000. And that's better than where it was before, making sure that our progress keeps going in the right direction, right? Next area, water intake. Right. This one's super simple, depending on who you are. I work with a lot of people who say they hate water, which is okay. Totally get it. We get used to consuming very tasty drinks, right? So when we drink water, it's like, it's not fun, right? So anyway, all water intake, this includes teas, sparkling waters, right? I don't necessarily include coffee or sodas in here, because, those things aren't necessarily hydrating you all the time, but, regular water, sparkling water, tea is going to give you, is going to count towards your water goal, right? I work to get people between half a gallon to a gallon of water, right? On a regular basis. If all else fails, you get no less than a gallon of water, which is 64 ounces, right? That's great. That's awesome. That's better than you barely getting any water at all. That's better than you getting 16-ounce water bottles a day, right? Again, that's not bad either, but when we're talking about longevity, the reason why we want to drink water is to improve joint health, improve energy, improve brain focus, nutrient distribution throughout your body, so that you feel better more consistently. Your workouts feel better. Your movement just feels good. That's why we prioritize water. So on those days where it's really, really hard, right, and you're not drinking water, you're getting headaches. You're not as focused. You're not as energized. So you're relying on more caffeine. It's like, wait. Actually, if we just focus on, if all else fails, I will get at least a half a gallon, right? We work our way up to that. And by the way, just a reminder, we work our way up to all of these, right? I have these guidelines as, hey, these are our general measure points. Like when these things are in place, a lot of times we start seeing the physical improvements without ever putting like emphasis on numbers or calories or anything like that, right? But we feel better, and when we like feeling better, well, we're far more likely to keep doing them. So on our worst day, we have more reminders of doing these things because they tie into so many other functions of our day to day. Right. So that's why I'm kind of going elaborately about or going into each of these categories elaborately to know why they're important. Because if we don't do them, right, if we don't have these necessary pieces in place, not only to see physical results but feel better, we're going to have less reasons to keep showing up on our worst days, on the days where we want to give up, right? Which is not fair to us and not fair to the goals that we say we want. I say specifically say that we want, because a lot of times what we say we want doesn't match up what we really want. We say we want a number on the scale, because that might fix, like, that might make us feel better. But oftentimes we will feel better before we ever have the number. If we have that reminder, right? Well, now we have enough. If we have that connection that we can feel better first, right, by doing these simple things. I know I'm only on category 2 of 5, but if we have that reminder, again, on your worst day, you can remind yourself, if I don't do this, I'm not going to feel my greatest. And I don't like feeling the way that I used to, right? So even if I don't have the number on the scale yet, even if I'm going through a hard time, I still have a reason to show up for myself, right? It's all tied together, and this is why I coach the way that I do, because for the person who struggles with the mental battle more than anything else, right, they're the ones that are going to get in their own way more often. So if I convince them that there's a shit ton of reasons to keep doing the quote unquote small things, right, well, again, this, on your worst day, you mitigate the time it takes for you to get back in the rhythm, get back on track, right? And you just maintain the same trajectory. This is what we want to establish, right? Your worst day doesn't turn into a week, doesn't turn into a month. It's a time in the sun, and you have your minimums that are higher than where they were before. So you keep going. So when that time passes, or however long it endures, you're still showing up consistently, right? So third category is exercising in a way that, like, you enjoy and also aligns with your goals. If you tell me you have a muscle definition goal and you're doing cardio every single day, you don't have a muscle definition goal. And we need to make sure that we address that and understand what's the frequency of training that you can do. What's your bare minimum that you can show up with first? Then we'll worry about optimal, right? All you got to do is work out 2 to 4 times, your muscle groups, each muscle group 2 to 4 times a week, right? So if you go from not working out or resistance training at all, right, and you prove to yourself that if all else fails, you get 1 or 2 workouts, great. Then we can worry about getting working in an ideal workout routine for you. But I need your minimum to be better first. If all else fails, you can get 1 or 2, and know that that can be good enough for the situation you have going on. Again, you're going to make the connection, like, okay, I don't need to stress myself out and say, oh, I already have so much going on. Now I have to fit in 4 or 5 workouts a week. There's no way in hell I'm going to do that. It's like, no, all I got to do is 1 or 2, right? Because then we give ourselves that easier path. We find more opportunities to say, well, I can add this too, right? When we have a higher minimum, right, there's no pressure to do everything perfectly, right? Because then you'll feel good, you feel comfortable and confident, like, oh, I got my minimums done. Where else can I fit in? What else can I do? What else can I do? And instead of everything that I can't do, right? It's simple adjustments, simple mental adjustments that should literally change the outlook on everything when our worst day shows up, because there will be days where it's too hard. You're going to want to give up. You're going to feel impatient, right? But that doesn't mean that you want to give in to that voice. Because if you're someone who struggled with that way of thinking for as long as you can remember, right, this is the reason you don't have a better understanding of your minimums. You don't have a good outlook on the way you perceive your results or your journey, right? It's going from everything that I can't do to everything that I can do, right? And we just simplify it, right? We make it your minimum first, because if you can establish and raise that floor, you allow yourself to be good enough. And when you allow yourself to be good enough gets better. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself because that's kind of what I want to finish with, but rabbit holes. So 3 is, like I said, is establish that minimum. I can work out once or twice a week, right, in a way that aligns with my goals, right? That's the most important thing. Okay. Third category, sleep and stress management. I put these in the same category because they are essentially, they go together hand in hand, right? If you're higher stress, oftentimes your sleep will be affected. If you're not sleeping well, oftentimes you are more stressed, right? So if all else fails, we can do something for ourselves that actually gives us recovery, actually helps deal with the stress of our day to day, and we get good at being proactive with that, right? Instead of reactive stress management. Like, most people only react to their stress when it's like they really feel the anxiety and the overwhelm in everything that they have going on, right? But For example, I'm someone who struggles with overthinking, analysis by paralysis, depression, all the things that, well, I feel like all of us experience in whatever capacity, right? But I know that I can mitigate that impact if I prioritize reading, if I prioritize exercise, if I prioritize movement in general, right? Those are my big three: exercise, moving, and reading. I will make sure that those will become a part of my day to help mitigate and improve my stress management over time. So I'm not reactive about my stress, I'm proactive. So when I feel the stress coming on, I know how to deal with it. I know, okay, maybe I need a break from my desk. I'm gonna go walk around my house for a little bit, walk around the block. All right. Or I like to start my day with reading. I like to start it with silence. I'm oftentimes talking a lot throughout the day, and I'm someone who needs to recover with silence. So reading is a very beneficial practice for me, right? This could be journaling. This could be meditating. This could be any hobby that just helps you be present with yourself, where you're not worried about everything that you have to do throughout the day and everything that you didn't do yesterday, right? If we can just be present with ourselves, that really helps with stress management, right? And if we can help with that, that's going to impact our sleep, right? I mean, I could do a whole episode on sleep because there's so many ways to improve your sleep, but this is why I put these categories together: sleep and stress management, because this is what really leads up to um the improvements that we want to see, right? And then when we sleep better, we're recovering better, we see better results over time. People think that they need to work out harder all the time. Sometimes they need to rest harder, and they'll see better results than if they were constantly always pushing their body. But again, that's for a topic for another day. But this is, again, if all else fails, you do one thing for yourself, one category of like, okay, everything's on fire. Maybe I'll give 5 minutes of silence to myself. That's a minimum that I will do, because if you give yourself that minimum, it can get better, right? We just want to establish a floor first, a higher floor than what most people are usually used to, which is nothing at all, right? And nothing at all is not aligning with your goals. Nothing at all isn't fair to you, right? It's horseshit, honestly, to do nothing for yourself just because everything is super hard right now. That's why we want these things to be easy to focus on. And I don't need all of these categories to be exactly where we need them to be. We picked the easiest, the one or two easiest ones that will make sure that we will hold on to these connections and or hold on to these minimums. And if there are in case of emergency, this is all I need to do to remind myself that I'm still showing up, that I'm still doing my best, and that's okay. That can be good enough. And then what's the fifth one? All right. I didn't write these down. I'm going off the cuff this morning because I just need to get back in the habit of recording my podcast. So the fifth one, this one is quality, food quality. So digestion goes into this category. Quantity can go into this category, but really identifying the foods that make us feel good, right? If all else fails, I choose the foods that sit well with me, that digest well with me, that don't cause me to be bloated, that don't cause me to feel uncomfortable or other digestional issues, right? This comes through awareness, right? This is why I help, or why simply before I give somebody macros, I just help them pay attention to the foods that digest well and don't digest well for their body, so that in these moments when they're struggling, right? Oftentimes we can turn to food to help us, quote unquote, feel better, right? But in reality, it's causing more bloating, more digestional issues, which would cause more stress in a situation where we feel more uncomfortable. And when we feel more uncomfortable, our brain's going to continue to find things that are going to help it try to feel, quote unquote, better, right? Because when our body's stressed, it only cares about you feeling better. It doesn't care how it does that. So it's oftentimes, this is why people who struggle with choices, food in these moments, they don't make the aligned choice, and then they make themselves feel worse, either adding extra calories in, adding extra discomfort in their body, and then again the cycle perpetuates. So if we can be aware of the foods that work well for our body, that just sit well, it doesn't always mean like the healthiest, right? But ideally, a lot of times protein and color digest very well for people, right? They don't cause a severe amounts of bloating all the time. They're very easy. They feel just satisfied and not overly bloated or puffy or heavy, right? And then this is we're not really necessarily getting into the calorie amounts, right? But when we prioritize those foods more often, we tend to eat less overall, right? And we feel like we're eating more because we're prioritizing the higher quality foods that work well for our body, right? And for example, a lower quality food is typically something that is processed, right? Something that comes in a box or a bag, right? A lot of times those foods super tasty, but they're not inherently unhealthy. They're just calories. They don't have vitamins and minerals like protein does, like fiber and vitamins and minerals from fruits and veggies and complex carbohydrates, right? The processed foods are just energy, right? And a lot of times they cause a lot of bloating because they don't have any digestional support. They're just calories, so they just sit in our stomach and have and cause a lot of disruption, right? It's not bad, it's just how our body responds. And when we become aware of those things, when we're having our tough week, tough day, right, we know which foods will help us feel better. So we have that reminders like, I don't feel good already, I'm not going to feel better by making a comfort food choice, right? Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't expect you to always say no to a food that you genuinely enjoy. But if we have the awareness, right? These 5 categories are just giving us the tools to be aware of, I don't feel that great. I don't want to go down the path of making myself feel worse, right? I started this, or I kind of started touching on this. When we can start feeling better first, we will have more reasons to keep making choices that help us feel better. It goes beyond just having a scale weight goal, right? It goes to the point of we want to make sure that if we can like the way that we feel and like the things that we're doing, right? No matter what's going on in our life, we will make the choice to feel better first. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not pretty, right? We are raising our floor. We are showing up better than we would be on our worst day before, right? Because if our floor is rock bottom, well, guess that's going to take a long time for you to get to your goal. But if your floor is like 30 stories higher, right? Well, maybe you do fall a little bit, but it takes you a lot less time to dig yourself out because you have your minimums, right? You don't need all 5 of these categories to be perfect to see results either, right? These are things that we work on during good times. Right. Usually in the beginning, we're like focusing on what's the easiest one to improve on, that you can be confident no matter what you do, you will guarantee that thing will get done. So that when it always happens, no matter what I do when I work with people, there's always something that comes up that makes it hard to be 110% focused on their goals, be it a move, be it a family death, or financial, or something is like clockwork, right? Either happens at the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or at the very end. I don't know what it is. I have a prediction, being more understanding about the universal stuff, but this is not that kind of podcast. There is always a test out there, right? And this is why if we can improve, there's a test from the universe. And this is why I focus on terming it raising your floor, because no matter what you do, life is going to try and punch you in the face. And if you're prepared for it, right, you don't have to completely give up and abandon your goals. When you have confidence and belief that your minimums are better than where they were before, it's not pretty, it's not perfect, it still gets done, and you improve your consistency. And when you improve your consistency and you show up better, right, this is what solidifies your results. This is what makes sure that you don't spiral out of control, regain all the weight that you lost, right? This is what really, really drives home the goals for the long term, and you get to keep them, right? It's not just I cut out my carbs for 6 weeks and now I'm like 40 pounds lighter, but then, I go on vacation and I'm 50 pounds heavier after I come back because I reintroduce all the carbs back, right? Like that's not what we want. And we don't want temporary change. We want permanent change. And by permanent change, we improve our routine, we improve our minimums, right? We address the red flags that have really held us back, usually our relationship with our food and ourselves, and we tie those into those 5 categories so that your worst day is better than where it used to be, so that you minimize the amount of time that you stay, because we can't avoid our hard times, right? I want to drive that really home. We don't ask for our hard times and we can't avoid our hard times, but we can choose how we show up during them. And if we choose to show up a little bit better than where it was before, that drives home consistency. When we're more consistent, we see results and we maintain them. Right. So I hope this helps. This is something I teach literally every single one of my clients. And if you're one of my current clients, I hope this resonates and you can tell this to your friends and family of like, hey, I'm not crazy. I tell this to literally everybody. And if you're new here and you learn something new, I mean, if you're a longtime listener, I appreciate you. You're new here, I appreciate you. If you learn something that's helped shift your perspective, I really appreciate it if you just shared this with one person. And I've been really appreciative of all the support I've been getting. All the people who tell me that they share my podcast, or they tell me that they listen to the show. It means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. Depending on when you listen to this, if you're starting the transformation challenge of July 15th, 2023, I hope you have a good one. And yeah, I just hope you have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your night, whenever you listen to this. And I'll see you on the next one.